Hi, this is Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow with the Expansions News Podcast for the third full week in November. And as you can see, Stuart Swerdlow is on assignment again in outer space because he did so well the last time. So I have Q and I have little Solomon over here who's gotten a lot bigger since you saw him the last time. So they will be helping me give you accurate news as well as their commentary as we go along. So, as you probably know, the big news this week is the impeachment hearing of Donald Trump, which is, of course, all over the news. Attorney General Bill Barr says the left is sabotaging the president by waging scorched earth, no-holds-barred war of resistance against Trump. Barr made these comments at the conference held by the Federalist Society in Washington, D.C. He said, quote, "In waging a scorched earth, no-holds-barred war of resistance against this administration, it is the left that is engaged in a systematic shredding of norms and undermining the rule of law." Last year, he was appointed following the resignation of Jeff Sessions. He went on to say in his speech that he is accusing the resistance of dangerous and incendiary language by questioning the legitimacy of the sitting government. Now, interestingly enough, I immediately picked up on that word resistance, and he goes on to say that immediately after President Trump won the election, opponents inaugurated what they called the resistance, and they rallied around an explicit strategy of using every tool and maneuver to sabotage the functioning of the executive branch and his administration. The cost of this constant harassment is real. Barr said that the use of the term resistance to describe opposition to Trump is problematic since it implies that the administration seized power by undemocratic terms. It obviously connotes that the government is not legitimate, he says. And of course, his remarks came on the same day that his Justice Department secured a conviction against former Trump associate Roger Stone. A federal jury convicted Stone of tampering with a witness and lying to Congress about his attempts to learn of hacked Democratic emails during the 2016 presidential election. He's scheduled to be sentenced on February 6th and could face up to 20 years behind bars. Now, this investigation, as I'm sure you know by now, centers on whether Trump's push for Ukrainian officials to investigate his political rivals amounted to an abuse of power, which is a charge he and Republicans vigorously deny. Now, ousted U.S. Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch told the impeachment investigators that she felt threatened when she learned that Trump had promised Ukrainians that she was going to go through some things, whatever that means. So then Trump tweeted during the impeachment trial, saying that things turned bad wherever she served, so therefore he fired her. And this comment was then quickly displayed on a video screen in the hearing room. Now, all of this reminds me of the scenario that we discussed on a previous podcast when Hillary Clinton gave a eulogy for recently deceased Representative Elijah Cummings, because Clinton at that point tried to compare the Trumps, or did compare the Trumps, to the Bible's Ahab and Jezebel in the Cummings eulogy. Now, of course, I told you we have the story here where we actually use Bill and Hillary when she used Melania and Donald Trump. And what this reminds me, this whole scenario is what people do is they point over there so you don't look over here. And I have had people do this to me, so I understand this technique very well, and I understand exactly what they're doing. Excuse me, so keep your eyes open on this one. Oh, and those of you who ask where you can get the books, because that comes in, Amazon has them. They also have them in Kindle, and also, of course, expansions.com. Look in our book section. We've got a ton of books there waiting for you to open and educate your mind. Now, Trump also complained recently that there is no longer freedom of the press after CBS News fired the woman who leaked a hot mic of an ABC anchor revealing the network that killed a bombshell Epstein story. Now, of course, in my opinion, Trump has been talking about no freedom of the press since he got in, but this is news, so that's why I'm telling you about it, and I'll explain why and just let's move along here. So this video, which was actually captured in August of 2019, when ABC News anchor Amy Robach revealed on a hot mic that the Disney-owned network spiked an interview with Jeffrey Epstein, accused of Virginia Roberts 3 years earlier. All this 3 stuff I keep telling you about. Ashley Bianco, 25, is accused of being the former ABC employee to leak the hot mic footage. Now, 2 things interesting here. First of all, she was fired from her current post at CBS after only days on the job. So the thing is, okay, she's 25 years old, she just got a new job, and she leaked this. Why would she do that? So that's one thing. And so is she a plant? And that second thing is her last name, Bianco, which means white. And we've talked about the white hats before. So to me, it's very possible she was a plant from the beginning, but I can't prove that to you. I'm just telling you. And then continuing on Jeffrey Epstein, as you know, it kind of goes in waves. It comes up and comes down. Well, it's all over the news again. Of course, Prince Andrew gave his pathetic interview, which I don't believe a word of it, but it's out there, and I'm sure they will trash him when they're done. Anyway, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, fears that he and his children will be murdered like his brother after what he's calling the sham suicide probe that he says found no evidence to support death by hanging. He gave an exclusive interview to Julie Brown of the Miami Herald, and he is asking officials to launch a proper investigation to determine if his brother was killed so that he can learn who may have targeted his brother. I don't think there can be a proper investigation. Mark hired Dr. Michael Baden to observe his brother's autopsy, and they both say they have not been presented with evidence that confirms any cause of death. Dr. Baden claims that he and the medical examiner assigned to the case both determined that further investigation was needed after the autopsy. But then days later, the New York medical examiner declared the death a suicide, much to the shock of Dr. Baden. So, Epstein's brother says it's all very suspicious, too much to be a coincidence. And he says that the investigation is incomplete, inconclusive, making it impossible to cause the death of his brother, and he is very worried of what's going to happen to him because of all of this. And Dr. Michael Baden believed that the cause of death was most likely strangulation after observing the medical examiner, Kristen Roman, perform Jeffrey's autopsy. Now, as you probably know, many people still say Epstein is still alive. So we don't really know what's fake news and what's not fake news. But this continues to unravel and reveal itself. And more Epstein continues. House Representative Paul Gosar posted 23 tweets about the impeachment hearings last week. And the first letter of each tweet spells out Epstein didn't kill himself. So you put the 23 tweets in a row, and the first letter starts with an E in the first tweet, the second's a P and the S, and so forth. So apparently, this Arizona congressman is signaling his support for the conspiracy theory, this is what they're calling it now, that Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself, but Paul Gosar is awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. So lots of things going on, but I will tell you that they are teaching you to look for and read code. And so I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? Keep your eyes open, because that's obviously more. And then the Epstein saga continues with Syrian's President Bashar al-Assad wading into this conspiracy theory. He says that the financier and convicted sex offender was murdered as part of a Western plot to eliminate high-profile people who know too much. He spoke to Russia's state-run Rossiya 24 station last week, and he commented on the death of Syria Civil Defense co-founder James Lemercier, who died after an apparent fall from his Istanbul apartment. Assad and his supporters have repeatedly alleged that Lemercier's organization, commonly known as the White Helmets, I guess this is different than the White Hats, which I was telling you about earlier, were not a rescue group, but militant operatives working on behalf of his foes, including the U.S. and the United Kingdom, which he speculated may have been behind a spat of apparent assassinations. And so Assad goes on to say American billionaire Jeffrey Epstein was killed several weeks ago. He was killed because he knew a lot of vital secrets connected with very important people in the British and American regimes and possibly other countries as well. And now the main founder of the White Helmets has been killed. He was an officer. He had worked his whole life with NATO in Afghanistan, Kosovo, Iraq, Lebanon, And both of us know that they were representatives, that the representatives of the White Helmets are naturally part of Al-Qaeda. I believe that these people, as well as the previously liquidated bin Laden and al-Baghdadi, had been killed chiefly because they knew major secrets. They turned into a burden once they had played out their roles. A dire need to do away with them surfaced after they had fulfilled their roles. Now the White Helmets, as opposed to the White Hats, which I told you about before, the White Helmets have long defended their record as rescue workers who operate in the most dangerous place on earth and have saved more than 100,000 lives over the past 5 years, doing so regardless of religion or politics. Now, James LeMessurier, the founder of the White Helmets, was found dead after apparently falling from a third-floor ledge. There's their three. His wife gave a 3-hour statement to the Turkish police, and Russia claimed that he was an MI6 spy, which his family has strongly denied. Now, his wife also said her husband had had suicidal thoughts 2 weeks before his deaths, and the police are treating his death as a suicide. But Assad said it is the work of intelligence services. He says, we are talking about Western intelligence as a whole, about Turkish and some others operating in our region. These are not intelligence services of sovereign states, but units of the key intelligence service, the CIA. He went on again to claim that the White Helmets were part of Al-Qaeda, that LeMessurier was killed for knowing very important secrets. And he also mentioned that there was a key person in Germany that was killed in prison, and then Epstein was killed and LeMessurier was killed. So Assad really was giving out a lot of information, which we're going to see, as I said, as time goes on, how it all comes together. Anyway, moving along to the next president after the 2020 election, 2024, I've been telling you about Kanye West. Well, it seems like you might have some competition. There is a man called the King of Instagram, who I just had never heard about until I read this article, who boasts 29 million followers. His name is Dan Bilzerian. Says he's planning to run for the White House in 2024, and he believes that he could beat Kanye West. And on Instagram, he does really wonderful things like posting photos of wild parties with himself. So again, why this gives him the credibility to be president of the United States, I don't know. But he's claiming he's going to run, and he thinks he could win over Kanye West, so we'll see. Anyway, really crazy. And of course, this, just so you know, he endorses Donald Trump, same as Kanye West endorsed Donald Trump. Now, moving on to something very dear and close to you is food. By 2025, there is a leading food futurologist named Dr. Morgan Gay that says that people will be wearing chips under their skin to indicate what foods they should buy according to your DNA makeup by the year 2035. She said that diets will be hyper-personalized in the future, and you will be able to breathe into a tube, and that's going to be able to tell you what it is you should eat. She said eventually they will embed these chips in your skin that will beep, but it's going to start out with this breathalyzer thing. And then from the breath sample, you can tell if you're lacking on a vitamin, which food you should eat. You can then, when it gets in your hand, you can wave your hand over an orange. If you're low on vitamin C, it will beep. Sounds a little bit like a lot, too much for me to deal with. And interestingly enough, they also claim that by 2035, there will be 3D printers in your kitchen. So you can print out whatever kind of food you want, and they will do things, I guess, like use insect powder in there, because you don't really want to eat that, I guess, at least not here in the West. So they want to make it more palatable, and they're feeling that the one-size-fits-all approach to diet will become a thing of the past, which of course Stuart and I have told you about for decades now. But anyway, that's what's being planned for you. And then in Ohio, the Republican House of Representatives voted unanimously to let students provide wrong answers on their science tests and homework for religious reasons, forcing schools to grade on substance and relevance. This is House Bill 164, called the Student Religious Liberties Act, which was passed in the Ohio House last week and will go to the Senate, which is controlled by the Republicans. Now, according to this law, it says that it will also allow for districts to provide a moment of silence for prayer, reflection, or meditation upon a moral, philosophical, or patriotic theme. No pupil shall be required to participate in such activities if they are contrary to the religious convictions of the pupil or the pupil's parents or guardian, the law states. It also gives students the ability to hand out their own written materials or literature of a religious nature to their peers. They will be allowed to wear symbolic clothing or expression of a religious viewpoint, provided that the activity is not obscene, vulgar, offensively lewd, or indecent. And under the law, religious expression can take place before, during, and after schools in the same manner as other extracurricular activities. Now, the chief lobbyist for the ACLU of Ohio says their rights are already fully protected by the First Amendment and Ohio Constitution, so he says this legislation is not only unnecessary, it also seeks to elevate religious speech in ways we believe will inevitably lead to much confusion plus constitutional violations in Ohio's public schools. So again, this may open the doors for other things like we've seen before, like for example, the Church of Satan and places like that to come into our public schools. So again, something to watch, because if it's happening here, let's see what's going to be happening in other states. Now this next thing I think is actually one of the best things I've heard in a long time. This is a push to bar puberty-blocking drugs, medical gender transitioning of children. Because in my opinion, these are the most vulnerable. This is the future of society, and these are the people that are being experimented on, which I think is terrible. So apparently now there are 3 states that are pushing to bar these puberty-blocking drugs to minors. So let's see, Republicans in 3 states have now either announced their intentions or are already drafting bills that would restrict or assign criminal penalties to the practice of medically altering the biological sex of a child in pursuit of becoming the opposite sex, now known as transitioning. In Georgia, State Representative Jenny Earhart, who's a Republican, is introducing legislation to make it a felony act for medical professionals to assist a minor child with a gender transition. She says, we're talking about children that can't get a tattoo, smoke a cigar or cigarette in the state of Georgia, but they can be castrated and get sterilized. And Republican Texas Representative Matt Krause said that he will introduce legislation prohibiting puberty-blocking drugs for children under the age of 18 during the next session. However, the next session will not occur until 2021 unless a special session is called before then, so let's hope a special session is called before then. In Kentucky, State Representative Savannah Maddox, who's also Republican, announced she was drafting a similar bill for her state. She says, I am a strong advocate for parents' rights, but it is not the right of a parent to permanently alter a child's gender or identity, even when based upon certain behaviors or the perceptions of a child's mind, which has not yet had fully time to develop. And this article also states that it is a widely held consensus that the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making part of the brain, does not fully form until people are into their 20s. And I have been telling you about detransitioners, or individuals who once identified as transgender but no longer do so, are now telling people about how it was a problem for them and they wish they hadn't done it. And I mentioned that in the podcast last week. And in New York Magazine, author Andrew Sullivan argued for greater caution and putting additional safeguards in place for teenagers desiring to transition, as opposed to swift affirmation and handing out testosterone like candy. And as you know by following our podcast, it's not just teenagers. Unfortunately, it's very young children, sometimes 2 and 3 years old. Right now, Andrew Sullivan goes on to say, we are effectively experimenting on minors who cannot give meaningful consent, and that alone should give us pause. Absolutely, because as I have told you, our young people are our future. So please, if you have questions yourself, I do highly advise some kind of counseling. Just don't go doing terrible things to yourself. True Reality of Sexuality is a great book. 13 Cubed, Case Studies in Mind Control and Programming. This is also excellent. Excellent. Will give you a lot of information. So if you think you're getting messages in your head, you may have some programming going on there that you want to deal with. Basic deprogramming exercises in the Hyperspace Helper. It's a little tiny, short book, easy read, but it's packed with exercises and visualizations, meditations that will help you and that give you food for thought, along with Universal Law, Decoding Your Life. Holidays are coming up. These make great gifts. I will remind you that we are well into our self-healing webinars, which is based on my affirmations for self-change. So this, again, this is a great gift book to yourself and to other people. Join us. Our next session starts in December. And of course, we do have the self-healing webinar series, which took us 3 years to get through this book, which is free to our members, expansions.com, less than $1 a day. Please remember, we don't do Q&A on Facebook and YouTube. So when you write us and say, I just have this question or that question, if you are interested enough in our answer and you respect us enough that you actually want to hear what we have to say, then go get a membership, less than $1 a day, and you will be amazed at how much information is on our membership side. We have tons of content for you over there. We have great people from all over the world who are participating, leaving comments, communicating with each other, and you're not alone. Even though you might think you're alone, you're absolutely not. That's only programming. So if you want galactic history, Blue Blood, True Blood's got alien stuff in here, really good, some pictures if you like pictures, and True World History, and of course the new books which follow that, the King Bee, Queen Bee book, and the one I'd already told you about, Template of God Mind. We have a lot of them that are in the process of being edited and laid out, so hopefully before the end of the year, we're hoping the medical book will be ready. It's proven a little bit more complicated than we thought, but it's very close to being able to go to the printer. That's as best as I can tell you for now. So in the meantime, like I said, if you want to know more about us, please visit our website, expansions.com. If you really want something to think about, some food for thought, get a membership, less than $1 a day. So you can do it and you get 1 month. Try us out, try that kind of thing, or get a book. So go to your library. Don't tell me you don't have any money. If you don't have any money, go to your library. Ask them to order in a book for you, and they will do that. If you have a Kindle, you can order it there. A lot of people get them from Kindle, so when they travel, they have them. And then a print book, because it's a lot more challenging for the print book to be taken away from you than your Kindle can just all of a sudden go blank. So with that said, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week along with Stuart Swerdlow when he returns from assignment. Bye-bye now.